Okay, so we're into the last hour already. That's flying by, and the presentations have been so interesting. And we've still got some really interesting ones to come, including one of my therapeutic photography heroes, Ulla, who's joining us from Finland, and we're going to go into her presentation next. So Ulla is a freelance phototherapy trainer and photographer. Her background is working with phototherapy from the millennium as a psychotherapist and also as a trainer in phototherapy courses at the University of Turku in Finland, where she's now retired. She's also organised international congresses in Finland, probably one of the first ones ever, I would say, and has had workshops in many other countries as well. She's a founding member and first chairperson of the Finnish Phototherapy Association, founded 20 years ago. And at the moment, she's writing a book called Photographs in Literature. The manuscript is in Finnish at the moment. I had the pleasure of meeting Ulla in Turku several years ago, and yeah, I had a lovely day in Turku and just seeing your gallery. So I'm really pleased that you're here. I'm sorry I'm gushing a bit too much, but yeah, it's great you're here. So we'll go into Ulla's presentation, and then we'll hear from Gabrielle, and again we'll stop and have a space for questions.
Dear participants, I'm Ulla Halkola from Finland, and my title in this symposium is Photography in Literature, How This Can Assist in Phototherapy and Training. I have worked with the phototherapy since millennium in many ways, and I'm also creator for spectro photo cards used in phototherapy. And all this time I have been active and having interest for photography in literature. Beside phototherapy pioneers, there is one person who has been very important for me. He is a French philosopher and essayist Roland Barthes. He has written a book, Camera Lucida, Reflection on Photography, and it is written in homage to L'Imaginaire by Jean-Paul Sartre. Barthes followed Jean-Paul Sartre's philosophy as phenomenology. He describes himself as a mediator for all photography. I make myself the measure of photographic knowledge. What does my body know of photography? That was important. Roland Barthes classified that people have three kinds of relationships with photographs. The first one is to be the operator, it is to be a photographer. The second one is the spectator, what means viewing photographs. The third one is the spectrum, and it is to be the object in photographs. And in phototherapy, I will add a creative aspect. To be a creator, it is adding writing, drama, music, or dance to photographing and photographs. Barthes created the concepts that has been and punctum phenomena. That has been is photograph's noema. The essence of photography is the real and the true. The moment has been in history. The operator photographs the moment, the spectator views the photograph. Punctum means that there is a photograph which are unique and meaningful in a subjective way. The punctum of a photograph touches us and causes pain. It affects both body and mind. This has been and punctum phenomena in photographs are together fundamental and significant actors in phototherapy. By reading novels, I have collected punctum moments. I have used my intuition and professional background as a tool during my reading processes. Writers are sensitive and insightful with their expressions. Fictional stories are fictional, but client stories are always confidential, so it is not fair to tell those stories. I will introduce As an example, four writers, Günter Grass, Olga Tokarczuk, Annie Ernaux, also well-known Nobel Prize winners in literature, and artist and writer Patti Smith. I will first tell about how it is to be the operator, the photographer, and as an example I have Günter Grass and his autobiographical novel The Box Tales from the Dark Room. Günter Grass wrote this novel in memory of Maria Rama, who was his friend and a talented photographer. Maria photographed Günter's children and family life, and she herself told that her box takes pictures of things that are not there, and it sees things that weren't there, or shows things you never in your wildest dreams could imagine. And there are many stories about the photographs that are punctum photos, maybe for Günther or for Maria or for Günther's children. The second writer is Olga Tokarczuk, who told in her Nobel Prize speech why photos are important to her. The first photograph she ever experienced was a photograph of her mother, who was pregnant with her. Olga Tokarczuk tells, "My mom is sitting beside our old radio. This radio later became my great childhood companion. For it I learned of the existence of the cosmos." Olga was thankful to her mother for giving her the gift of storytelling. "My mom gave me something once known as soul, furnishing me with the world's greatest tender narrator. It was the photograph and a radio." The third writer is Annie Ernaux. One of her most famous books is Les Années, the Years. It is an autobiographical novel. As a sociologist, she has written the book in a phenomenological style of part. Private is universal. In her novel, she writes about photographs from her family albums, which describe certain epochs in her life from 1940 to 27. In these photographs, she herself is the spectrum. One special photograph for Annie Ernaux is the first photograph taken of her when she was around 1 year old. She starts the years and also another book, Another Daughter, by describing this childhood photograph. It is surely her punctum photograph. I will introduce to you also Patti Smith, who is a famous rock singer. She is also a talented writer and photographer. Patti Smith has written that writing and photographing are good ways to cope when life is hard. Most examples were autobiographical stories, but I have to say that most of the novels in my collections are fictional. Essential contents are love, war, and creativity. In psychological words, attachment and emotions like love, fear, sorrow, longing, shame. For writers, photographs increase factual aspect to fictions. Photographs enrich storytelling with visuality, and photographs highlight memories. There are writers for whom photographs play an essential and fundamental part in their books. So, Why to use literature in phototherapy training and phototherapy? Use of literature and punctum citations assist participants in training to understand the punctum phenomena effect in photographs. In phototherapy, it is possible to reflect one's own life experiences with the fictional person's experiences. The purpose is to develop client's sense of self. In practice, it means to use citations like to use associative photocards in phototherapy. Photograph and literature can enrich professional knowledge and develop empathy towards others and the self. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm ready to answer to your questions.
Thank you, Ulla. That was really interesting, and another new angle of using photographs as well, and just bringing the punctum into literature. So fascinating. Is there anything else you want to add while I get the next video set up?
Before the next one.
Yeah.
I think that this literature, text, and the photographs, they are like a twins. They they are good together, because in fictions you can have some distance in real life, but it is still touching.
Thank you. Excellent. And we'll open it up for questions again, but I'm going to play Gabrielle's video next. Gabrielle Motola is a multi-award winning photographer and has dedicated over 25 years to mastering her art. 5 years ago, she turned to habitual street portraiture to improve her photography, manage social anxieties and fears related to asking and rejection, harnessing photography to improve mood regulation and self-efficacy. Intuitively refining her techniques, she designed and launched a dedicated workshop 2 years ago based on her photographic and psychological insights. Driven by her method's transformative impact, she pursued a postgraduate degree in therapeutic photography at Robert Gordon University, which I believe is very good. And she continues to run, refine, and diversify her workshops and is actively looking for collaboration. So I shall play Gabrielle's video now. Enjoy.
Good evening from this very blustery day in Norfolk. My name is Gabrielle Motola. I'm going to talk to you today about a workshop that I've developed over the last few years based on my own street portrait photography practice. Just quickly about myself, I studied film, psychology, and photography, so I have a background, but I've taken level 1 and 2 counseling in the last few years, and I did the PG cert at RGU last year in therapeutic photography. I wrote a book called An Equal Difference, which was about Iceland's mindset around the financial crash and also as it pertains to gender equality, because I was curious as to why they kept turning up in the WEF Global Gender Gap report. That's a big mouthful. Number 1 in equality in the world. What did that mean? So I use photography as a way to go and talk to people there. So portraiture has always been a really big part of my work as a photographer. So today's talk, I'll touch on my practice, when it began, what it is, how I turned it into a workshop, mostly what that workshop is, what it contains, and the therapeutic approach that I use, multidisciplinary. And then I'm just going to give you some examples of participants, their work, and their feedback about the workshop. So my practice began in 2019 as a way to overcome fear and anxiety around making portraits of people. I'm somebody who has struggled with depression and anxiety for most of my adult life. And so it was very useful for me to be able to frame this in the context of a habit, where I one day decided I was going to make a portrait of a stranger every day, or I was going to ask at least, and if I made the portrait, great, and if they said no, that wasn't about me. I learned that over time. I didn't used to know that. I used to take rejection very personally, and it stopped me from doing a lot of the things I wanted to do, because I just wouldn't even try. I was too afraid to get rejected. So when I began, I didn't quite have a code of ethics yet, but I did have clear intentions as to why I was making portraits of people. A lot of what I work with when I'm doing my practice is watching my mind try and anticipate what I think is going to happen or what I think people are going to say. I'm not a mind reader. So rather than engaging with those stories I'm telling myself, I watch them and I let them go, and I go and I find out what's actually going to happen, which is always surprising and usually much more interesting. I feel fear when I do this, still to this day, when I ask for somebody's portrait. But I've learned how to cope with that fear. I've learned to notice what my body is feeling and to breathe and relax myself by breathing and being present and grounded in the moments and practicing mindfulness. And so I ask and I allow whatever's going to happen to happen. I know I have no control over the other person, over what's going to happen. I can only ask and see. If I make a picture, great. If I get a rejection, that's great too, because that gives me the opportunity to work with that. So I've learned that rejection isn't personal. It's always about the other person. It's not about me. And it's a hot potato. I try to treat it like that. Drop it, let it go. Don't ruminate on it. And it used to stay with me a lot longer than it does now. Now, if I get a rejection, I just sort of move past it quite quickly, and I've forgotten it by the time I make the next portrait usually. And the process for me is about observing myself and reflecting and using positive self-talk, positive reinforcement to help myself. So rather than being critical about what I didn't do right, I try to look at what I did do right and give myself credit for that. And then think about what I could do better. And I try to cultivate a much kinder relationship with myself. And it actually has happened. I have a much better relationship with myself. I know when I'm being hard on myself. I'm much more aware of it. And I work to let that go. And to dig underneath what that's about for myself. It's usually about anxiety and fear. So creating a habit out of this practice was the best thing I could have done, because just doing it every day means I don't have to think about it. So I did that for about a year. And I don't make pictures of people every single day now, but I do make pictures of people a lot still. So the workshop itself is photography forward. We're practicing photography, but it's got a therapeutic benefit, because in order to work on your photography, you need to work on yourself, your mind. So you have your camera and your lens, but really what you're making pictures with is your mind, you. What you see and what the camera sees have to merge, because you have to tell the camera what you are paying attention to, because the camera doesn't know unless you point it. So if there's something in the frame you didn't want, the camera doesn't know that. If you're not aware of it, it will be in the frame. If you are, you move the camera. So photography is a wonderful tool for developing awareness, not only with photographs, but inside as well. So the workshop's a day. I've done a lot of iterations of this workshop over the last two years, and I've taken feedback from participants. At the end of every course, I send out a feedback form, and it's now a full day. We always open the session in the morning with theory, usually over coffee. I will have emailed them ahead of time my code of ethics to encourage them to start thinking about their intentions and what is ethical to them about what they're going to do, what their boundaries are. So once we finish the session in the morning, which is about us getting to know each other, talking about our relationship photography, what we'd like to get out of the day, we always talk about nerves, which most people have, including myself. I go out and demonstrate, so they follow me and I make pictures of people and they listen to and watch my interaction. And when they're ready, they go and ask. So I can't do that part for them. I just ask that everybody in the group commit to asking one person, and whether they say yes or no isn't in their control. They decide if they want to ask another person. And we just go through the day and practice. They ask, they make a picture, or they don't. And we always work on the feedback with them. What is going on for them? How do they feel? How is that? If they made a picture, I work photographically with how is the picture? What could they do? And I give them notes. I also encourage them to look at what they did well. So if they asked and they didn't get a picture, great, they asked. If they asked and they got a picture they didn't like, they asked and they made a picture. And we just practice like that, and we reflect and feedback. We have a break in the middle of the day for lunch, which is just about relaxing. And then we go back out and we continue the day as we did the first part. And then at the end, we have a closing session, usually at a pub over a drink, We wrap things up. We talk about the future goals. Maybe they'd like to commit to making a portrait a day for a week if they can, or a month, or a year. And they're all on WhatsApp. So they have their own group, but then that group has access to all of the other groups that I've taught. So there's a central group. So there's ongoing support through that, and people can share their work. And again, it's about photography. We're really here to learn how to make pictures, but in order to do that, we have to work on ourselves. We have to work on our self-talk, our fear, and we do it gradually, which is why I call it exposure therapy. Create a safe space, a holding space, and they can explore within that. And we work on reframing rejection, and we work on our mindfulness and our listening to our intuition. And I also go over street photography law, so what's legal in whichever country I'm teaching in when it comes to public photography, and then ethics, and we talk about that. It's a very process-focused workshop, so it's not about making great pictures, even though it is a photography workshop. That comes in time. Really, people come to me to get over their fear of asking strangers to make portraits of them, and that is a real thrill to be able to just ask. So we're really focusing on that. And we are really working with our inner monologue and our awareness, not only of our photographs, but of ourselves. And we are aiming to boost confidence. And that happens by wanting to ask somebody and asking somebody. It really doesn't matter if they say yes or no. The fact that you asked is incredibly, it's incredibly positive, and it creates self-efficacy after, repeating it by engaging over and over with this and asking, regardless of what people say. It shows you that you can do this. And so at the end of the day, I always count up how many rejections each person had. I tell them at the beginning of the workshop, the person with the most rejections wins, not the person with the best pictures, because that's really where the work is done. So some of the therapeutic aspects of the workshop: mindfulness, because we're outside walking around, we're doing a physical activity, we're present, we're moving, we're observing. Photography gives you a wonderful opportunity to externalize your emotions, your inner states, to work with your inner states and your emotions when it comes to other people, relationships. Empowerment, the camera, as we know, is a wonderfully empowering tool. And then the great thing about the group is that it's normalization. So people really understand that we share common struggles and that we are not alone in those struggles. And that helps us relax and feel better about ourselves and let go of some of the judgment that we have about ourselves. We keep repeating the cycle of, asking and dealing and reflecting. And so each time we have the fear, we learn to recover from it. So we are learning to emotionally regulate over time, and reframe our thoughts and feelings about what we're doing, and develop a much more compassionate relationship, a kinder relationship with ourselves. Because ultimately that is going to help us make better pictures. If being really hard on ourselves was going to work, it would have worked by now. So here's some metrics, just some scale of 1 to 10s of confidence in red before the workshop, and in green after the workshop, about how people felt about making portraits of strangers, asking for the portraits. And then the overall workshop experience is generally very positive. And so this is Katie. She was a participant in the Bristol workshop that I taught. And she uses photography to cope with anxiety in many different ways, but her portraiture practice specifically gave rise to a really large mindset shift, which was very heartening to hear and to see in the workshop. So these are some of the pictures she made at the workshop. And it was just, it's also like a brilliant day out. It's a lot of fun. And so it's one of the really positive aspects of it, is it's social. And there's a sense of community. And this is Jesse. He's from the States, and he did the workshop when I came to New York. And he is a veteran of the Iraq War, and he's done a lot of therapy and a lot of work on himself for the PTSD that he suffers. And he says that his street portraiture practice was one of the big sort of milestones and turning points in his ability to sort of link everything together. And he's found making portraits of strangers hugely therapeutic and helping him develop a better relationship with himself, with others, and his ability to really feel good and listen to others. So it's been really, really beautiful to be able to have seen that with Jesse, but also to speak to him about that as we have stayed in contact. I'm still in contact with many of the people who've taken the workshop. So just to briefly touch on the theoretical foundations, holding environment I mentioned, positive psychology, cognitive behavioral, reframing, and, phenomenologically, just engaging directly with the world through photography for growth and knowledge about self. The camera is a mirror. It's a wonderful tool. You project onto the subject yourself. And so a photograph is sort of I look at it as a representation of a relationship in time. And for me, the relationship's very important. And the photograph is a beautiful souvenir of that relationship. So if you want to work on your photography, work on yourself, this is really the message for photographers. If you want to improve your photography, work on yourself, work on your mind. And so for the future, I think mental health professionals would be very interesting to work with in co-developing workshops, in maybe taking workshops and picking up some of the tools for deeper client engagement. It'd be really interesting to work with psychotherapists. I'm not a licensed trained psychotherapist, nor do I intend to be, but to work perhaps in a retreat setting for deeper work. And then the development of future workshops. I've got a few iterations in development. So please get in touch if you want to talk about this, if you're interested in the workshop or in talking about collaborating and just exploring. I'd be really happy to hear from you. Thank you very much for your time, and it's been a pleasure to be part of this.
Wow. Ooh, I was watching the reactions on the chat there as well. So really positive feedback, and I think it was really engaging. And I remember running a group myself, and one of the participants was really shy, and one of the highlights for him was actually going over to a group of people and asking if he could take their photograph, and they said, yeah, that's fine. And he was just buzzing from that experience. It was just transformative in that moment, just to see his confidence explode. Really, it was really good. So thank you very much for that. Really brilliant presentation. There's some questions. I think Nicola was reacting to one of the earlier questions about the therapeutic process and kind of what it is about. Is it the photograph? Is it the process? And yes, it's everything. I think it's how we engage with the photographs. It's how people engage with the process. And Nicola highlights there as well about the developing of the photograph as well in the darkroom. That can be extremely therapeutic in itself. And Sissy's raised a question about the client group for your kind of workshop, Gabrielle. Is there a specific client group that you seem to attract?
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's presented so far. I'm buzzing with excitement and ideas. And thank you, Sissy, for that question. It's actually part of the future for me. But at the moment, I tend to get, like I said, I get photographers, so I'm working within the photographic community. A lot of us are sensitives. I forget who mentioned highly sensitive persons, HSPs, but I'm one of them. And I tend to get a lot of hobbyists and amateurs meaning for the love of it. And I do get a lot of professionals too, meaning they earn their living at photography, but everybody shares this passion. So at the moment, I'm working in that community, but I think with this is what I'm interested in going into, is to work with mental health professionals who are treating people for maybe more acute mental health issues like I have and have had. I wouldn't have taken myself out into this environment when I was suffering from extreme depression or anxiety and hadn't quite worked through what I've worked through. I mean, I have photographed and made some portraits when I've been extremely depressed, but my coping skills have increased exponentially. I've been in talking therapy for a really long time, and I think Kat mentioned, she felt like she was getting nowhere. And also Andre talks about, it being, why don't we use pictures? I think sort of talking therapy might cut out a lot of the population who can't speak about their feelings. And even to speak about feelings can be re-traumatizing, as we know. So I suppose to wrap it up, I'm sorry, this is kind of, I gotta look back at the question, but the client base at the moment is photographers, but I can foresee this going out. I'm really inspired by, I'm losing Natalie's work, which her website says essentially is what I'd like to move towards. And I think maybe working with mental health professionals would help me develop programs for mental health development workers and mental health professionals. So like working in the NHS with psychotherapists and making these programs for them to help them with their jobs, and then perhaps co-developing workshops for more for patients who are, for clients who have more I guess sensitive needs, who might be more acute or going through something else. And it might not be the street portrait workshop, but it might be something that follows the same kind of principle, like you said, Neil. Isn't it wonderful to see how much somebody doing something they think they're going to have a horrible situation with, or they're going to get rejected, and somebody saying yes, and it is a huge dopamine hit, and it does really create a huge buzz. I always feel much better if I go out and make pictures, and especially if I interact with people and they say yes. But you know, the rejection can be very hard for some people, and I would never put you know, people in certain states of mind out there to do that, because it could be harder to recover from right away. Does it make sense? Have I answered the question?
No, absolutely, yeah.
Get
And
nervous.
Sissy's saying that she'd be happy to if you're interested in expanding, just reach out and discuss. So I guess Sissy can get your details, or Sissy message me
Yeah.
and pass on Gabrielle's details, no problem at all.
Yeah, I think it would be wonderful to speak to many of the people I've heard talking, to share and see how we can help more people in different ways.
Great stuff. Thanks very much. Ulla, can I ask you quickly, the book you're working on, is there a planned release date for your photography and literature book?
Please repeat a little bit, because
You said you're writing a book.
ask my plans, what to do with
The book that you're writing at the moment, do you know when it might be published?
I wish it will be published in autumn, but I think in Finland it's quite a difficult situation for non-fictional books. So
Is it?
I'm not sure, but I will thank you so much for organizing this wonderful symposium. You said we are across the planet, so it's something very, very important. And one thing I will say, that photography in literature has a big tradition since André Breton, Nadia, and so Sepald, Auschwitz, and so on. And I think we can learn a lot from bibliotherapy. So they are so much the same, what is happening in our mind when we read, or they come from the other side, text and photos.
Yeah.
So,
I think what we need to do is be inspired by your project 20 years ago, and we really do need to try and come together in a real physical space and run these workshops, and you know, try these new techniques. So that's the dream, is that we can come together.
And all these presentations have been so touching, and I have some nostalgic in my mind, and so all the best for the future, as I say that as a retired person.
Thanks, Ulla. Okay, so we're into the final two presentations for the night, and we're going to go off to Athens now. We've got Vasileios Kantas. Sorry, Vasileios, if I haven't pronounced that properly. He's a photography practitioner and educator, researching a field of photography practice that he calls oblique. Kantas proposes a guided process which aims to manifest potential shifts of one's current worldview, encountering situations through their photographic equivalents. So I'm going to play Vasileios's presentation, and then we'll hear from Marina's, and we'll open the floor for final questions. So
Hello, I am Vasileios Kantas, a photography practitioner and educator since 2010. And I would like to thank the organizers of this symposium for accepting my paper for presentation here. I'm going to talk to you about oblique photography, a process model that I have designed. Oblique photography is a process to guide someone towards manifesting his concerns, current and refashioned ones, through producing his own photographic imagery, reflecting upon it and reshaping it. The steps to be followed use a variety of tools that could establish a connection with her authentic, timeless self. Each voyager, meaning the participants in the workshop, can pursue as many steps as they can possibly afford. Intensity and depth of the experience depends upon the voyager's response. The destination of this journey provides, in an image form, an indicative state of the ideal point from where they finally get to stand now. Oblique photography acknowledges as effective ones and overlaps in many points with the broadly used methods in the field of therapeutic photography. It highlights, though, the importance of conditions of entering an effective journey, able to unfold the flow of issues wishing to be dealt with, and clarifying the existing situation and reshaping its potential structure. Here is a handwritten diagram that I'm going to further explain upon the steps of this photographic practice. Participants are asked to be prepared somehow like following a ritual by giving them a symbolic ball of yarn, exactly as Ariadne the myth gave a ball of yarn to Theseus, which he unwound as he entered the labyrinth to confront the Minotaur, and after slaying the Minotaur, Theseus followed the thread back to the entrance of the labyrinth, rejoined Ariadne, and successfully escaped Crete. So examples of this symbolic ball of yarn can be a bag with idio compass on, earphones playing aligned songs, own heartbeat, some nicknames that have been given in the past to the participants, a custom-made tap shoes, or anything could do, just to ensure that they will stay connected with this inner process, a connection that should stay alive, active throughout the process, and if dissolved, should be reactivated, for example, through microphenomenology self-interview, or through socially oriented focusing. They have to produce a series of photographs. And when I say series of photographs, I mean different folds of a specific subject. And at the end, they have also to execute a farewell on their own initiative. It has to do with their own habitus, how do they stand in this world, and what they usually do to relate with others. Regarding the shooting attitude, the participants are asked to look for resonance around them. The shooting environment ideally should include unknown conditions and should have an inductive character. The photographer's state should depend on spontaneity, on care, on gratefulness, on bodily apprehension of what is surrounding them. It would help if they are in a mindfulness state. And of course, searching for resonance, they should keep safe, both in terms of their outer stimulus and their inner situation. The participants will eventually produce a series of photographs, ideally resonant to the subject that they're dealing with, and one of these photographs, through a process that we later on describe, will be able to better display in an accurate way their current position regarding the issue that they're photographing. This chosen photograph will be the subject of their reflection. Allow me here to say that in oblique photography, where there is no brief in order to create them, some of its author's issues, concerns, beliefs, worries, wishes, etc. in the image might have been included in the frame in a difficult to discern way and in a non-conscious way quite often. The level of obliquity might be high, where substantial issues might have been transcribed in some level of disguise in the image, or not that high. However, the oblique photography does not mainly search for accurate articulations of given outlines, as in the example of the vulture in the following slide, because most of the times the affinity might be of a qualitative similarity rather than of shape of the situation. The similarity of form is something that has already been suggested, for example, by Freud, when he noticed in a painting of Da Vinci that there was a hidden form of a vulture connecting to motherhood. However, this kind of reading images, a semiotic one trying to find signs and deciphering it, it's not the one that oblique photography follows. Oblique photography searches for resonant signs and a way to unfold them, not necessarily in order to grasp their essence, their meaning or their function, as it might endlessly reforms, but towards a fruitful rearrangement, repositioning, refashioning of one's way of existing in the world now. A final version of the resonant sign in a single photograph might be the final step of the ladder, and this is a task of the oblique photography. So after the series of photographs have been produced and one of them has been selected, it's a time for engaging with this chosen one, and the actions that the participants should take are the following. At the beginning, we have to nominate a protagonist, subject, object, situation. It's like replying to the question, through which part of the image does the image act? In order for one to be able to notice and decide who the protagonist is, a photographic frame composition analysis would help. Secondly, to clarify the role of this protagonist, it is like replying to the question, what happens to it? Again, empathy is what one should use to understand the role. Thirdly, look for other elements in the picture, let's call them agonists, of a secondary importance, and settle up with their missions, maybe through the IFS model, trying to reply the question which other parts need to be sorted out before dealing with the protagonist. And finally, when the space is quite clear, then it's a time for interventions upon the plot. So the participant that has produced an image that gradually becomes more transparent to him, it's an image that can be manipulated by producing new images. It's like replying to the question, how else this condition that I am now aware of could be. In the diagram that I have shown before, this is the phase over here where a transformation of the selected image should take place by experimenting with the way the elements in the frame have been arranged by giving new arrangements, let's say. This new image reproduction can take place either in a new series of photographs or in autonomous images based upon a reformed plot, hopefully to get to a more clear, more substantially conscious image where our encounter with the world has become clearer and now takes a shape. Here's a concrete example of a photograph on the right hand where this is a chosen one from a series of photographs produced to depict a family situation, the relationships that are taking place between its members. Of course, the creatures that we're looking at, which are children, stand for the other members of the family that the photographer has in his mind. And we're looking that in the next picture on the right, the relationship between the three creatures, the three protagonists, have changed. So the dynamics of their coexistence has gradually changed throughout this photographic practice, throughout the need of the photographer to find creatures that have a different resonance with his own issue. If I could use a metaphor to describe what oblique photography's target is, it would be to find a view from a next floor last step in an unnumbered floors tower. And heading upstairs or downstairs doesn't really matter. It is the move itself that seems more fruitful, more important. Thank you for your presence. I would happily discuss further what I have presented. I'm here for you.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was another really interesting perspective of engaging and using photography in a way that I've not encountered before as well. So thank you, Vasileios. What I'll do is I'll play Marina's presentation next, and then we'll open up to some final questions. Marina's not here, but she has provided a presentation. Let me just set that up. 1 second.
My name is Marina Belaya. I live in St. Petersburg. I'm a phototherapist, an art therapist, and I'm currently studying to become a psychologist. I have been working with photographs for about 2 years, and every time I seem to rediscover this method. I took my first self-portraits in 27. My husband and I lived in a rented apartment, and I took a selfie right in the kitchen. These pictures didn't have a therapeutic purpose and deep meaning. I just wanted to fix the external changes. I got a new haircut. Now I take self-portraits periodically, most often on a smartphone. My experience has shown that shooting self-portraits allows me to track my emotional state, gives me the strength to live and work further. In the summer of 2023, I came up with an experiment, posted it on social networks that I was looking for people who wanted to take self-portraits in order to track the dynamics of their condition. 15 people responded to the call, but only 9 of them have completed. The reasons for participating in the experiment were different, from interest to a desire to change your condition. A 32-year-old participant from Moscow came to the project with a desire to feel more confident. The daily shooting of self-portraits became a kind of ritual for her. It was a time just for me. If photos are important to me, then I am important to myself. My favorite picture is a black square, which you need to look at to see a person. This is how it is in life. To consider a person, you need to pay attention to him, take a closer look. A 32-year-old participant from Yekaterinburg felt excited at the beginning, had high expectation of herself, wanted to think over self-portraits, but then decided to relax and begin taking selfies. The experiment made it clear that I am not a constant, that I can be different. A 35-year-old participant from the Moscow region noted that she continues to take self-portraits for herself now. Self-portraits allow you to track your condition. A 61-year-old participant from Perm came to the experiment to explore herself. She understood that she didn't accept her age, and in a month and a half of filming she began to get used to age changes. Now my goal is to take more care of myself, pay attention to myself more point-wise in the A 45-year-old participant from Kyoto set out to experiment with getting to know her real self. Self-portraits are highlighted that I began to take my shadow side, putting myself and my interests first. A 34-year-old participant from St. Petersburg noted that for her daily self-portraits became a kind of ritual. Whatever happens in the world, she needs to take one picture a day. A 25-year-old participant from St. Petersburg noted that she had never interacted with her visual appearance before. The most she did was take selfies in a joyful moment. Self-portraits became for her a way of self-discovery and a way of creative activity. A 35-year-old participant from Moscow admitted that at the beginning of the project she felt insecure, but in the second week she began to shoot herself more often, including on video. Shooting self-portraits increased self-confidence. I wanted to show myself to the world. A 39-year-old participant from Moscow noted that this was her first experience shooting self-portraits. From the project, she received a new tool that allows her to capture the state at the moment. The experiment confirmed my hypothesis that self-portraits have a therapeutic effect. In the future, I want to continue the experiment and expand the geography of participants. So, if you have any other questions, I will be glad to answer them. My contacts are on the slide.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for your presentations. Vasileios, was there anything that you wanted to respond to from the questions? Because I could see there was some comments about sort of very interesting perspective, but are you saying that this is still work in progress at the moment?
Yes, it is a very complicated model, I have to admit. One should look at the presentation again in his own time at the YouTube link. It is a process that I haven't still applied on the whole of it. I have applied it partially, and I'm trying to find the words to lead someone, to guide him through a path that is effective in order to find his unconscious parts that ask to be dealt with. And it's not about making better photographs, of course. It's about realizing what are the interests or the issues that someone has to deal with, and make some steps in order to change his worldview, because as Gabrielle said before, we have to change ourselves in order to find changes in our photography practice.
Mhm.
It's only out of improving our situation, becoming more aware of what are we really doing. And I'm helping my participants to better understand what are they depicting at the moment that they think they depict something else.
Mhm. Excellent. I look forward to seeing how this develops, because as I said, it's new to me, but I can see how it ties into lots of other areas of therapeutic photography and even therapy practice in a way as well. So I think it comes back to the photograph as a catalyst for something,
Yes,
for communication, for change, but yeah, fascinating. Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Okay, we are almost at the close. So Ruth, do you have any comments that you wish to add before we start to wrap up?
Oh, I should have thought of something, shouldn't I?
On the spot, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm feeling very grateful to everyone, all the presenters of, I mean, everyone's developing work in such inspiring and ways where, you know, there's some commonalities, there's some very unique things, there's such a wonderful mix. And one thing that I've really felt, I guess, or kind of observed more is that there seems to be, a lot of people have mentioned the future, as part of their presentations. And, I think, well, I can't remember who, but quite a few people have mentioned the future. And even though photography is about a moment in time, like now, it's this thing of, and there's this big future kind of thing looming. And I don't know, I just felt that was really interesting. And something that I don't know, I would love to explore more with anyone really who's interested.
Yeah, I think that it just underpins what a community this is. I mean, yes, we've had some presenters, but obviously the people who have attended and stayed with the call, and those that were able to join for limited amounts of time, there's so much interest and passion and enthusiasm for these techniques. And it is so wonderful to see that community growing in size as well, but the diversity within that as well. Because I know what I do, and I think I understand what you do, but what we've seen is such a diversity of different approaches tonight. And I think that's the beauty of these approaches, is that they're so accessible, they're so effective as well, and they lend themselves to different niches. So if somebody's got a particular interest, they can drive the use of photography in that area so effectively. So it's been wonderful to see.
And I think it's been wonderful to have so many people sort of speaking, but also in the chat conversations around, that bring in kind of culturally appropriate work, and kind of coming from that more, a very expansive point, with regards to diversity in its greatest sense, really, as well, which I think is really important.
Yeah. Excellent. Would anyone else from the panel like to say anything before we close?
Yeah, I want to thank everybody because for joining us, and I really loved to watch the work of you all, because I'm learning about mindfulness. It's for me it's very difficult, or it's more far from me, and I love to see it that it's working for so many people, and it opens doors that I can do something with it. So it's very nice to see the different, Neil, you said it already, also different perspectives, different approaches, and that's very nice. I really like to go on further on this path with phototherapy and stuff like that.
Excellent.
So thank you all.
Thank you, Andre.
I will also thank you very much. It's great to see how powerful phototherapy is And the language of photos is so universal. So as you said, and as I have felt so many times, we are like a family.
Mhm. It feels like that.
Things and every day it is possible to learn something, new things. And so great young people doing these projects.
Absolutely.
Great, yes.
I think on that note, I think that should be our closing note. So thank you very much again to everyone on the panel for contributing. Thank you to the audience for watching. Remember, I will be sharing all the links to the videos we've watched. There will be the links to the ones that have been submitted for our Fringe event. So you'll be able to see some more recordings as well. And fingers crossed, we'll see you at the 3rd International Therapeutic Photography Symposium next year, and maybe even a live event. That would be great, wouldn't it? In-person event.
Oh, yes.
We shall see. No promises. We'll see what happens. But thank you very much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.